Okay, in today's class, we are going to understand in HTML types of input attributes. Okay, in the previous class, we tried to understand how to create the form with different labels. Okay, applicant's first name, applicant's last name. So, how to create the button to submit the form. So, this is the code I have written for the last class. Here, input type text, okay, and the button input type button submit. So today in our class, how many types of input values are there? Okay, so so many. We need to understand input types today. So the HTML input element has different types. One is that button. Already we have practiced in the previous class. That is what submit. Okay. One more type is button, checkbox, color, date, date, time, local, email, file, hidden, image, month, number, password, radio, range, reset, set, submit. This is the submit. Input type, submit. We have used. Okay. Next, text input type. Already we have practiced input type, text. Here, input type, submit. Okay, so input type time, input type URL, input type week. So many different types of inputs are there. If you want to see them, so the class, if you want to see the class, so I will show that. It is very important to see the class. So this is the input type, different types of inputs, HTML input types. Okay, as I have briefed that different input types we can use in HTML. This is the input type button, checkbox, input type color, date, okay, date, time, local, email, input type file, input type hidden, input type image, input type. This input is an element. Input is an element. Type is an attribute. So the value will be whatever you want to assign. So input type password, input type radio button. Okay. Input type range. So input type reset, input type set, input type for submit, input type tell. Okay. Input type time, input type URL, input type week. These are all different types of input data types, input types. Okay, so let us, in the previous session we have used, this is what, input type text we have used, input type text we have used, and we have used input type submit. Today we will try to understand input type radio. So how to use the radio? Sham Sundar, you are from attending the class from where? Sham Sundar, you are attending the class from where? So if you have not huh?
Sir,
You are attending the class from where? You are attending the class since a long time, but you have not mentioned your details. Okay, the default value of the data type attribute is text. Suppose that if you have not mentioned any value, so input element declared with type attribute, but you have not given any value, so the default value will be taken as text. Okay, so next input type. Today we will try to understand how to use the input type password, otherwise input type radio button. So for this, the code we will use for go for first. This is the open your, so open new, so go for new notepad, new. So totally it is new. That time I told you that you need to write the code like this. First of all, this is what doc type. I told you that initially it is to be written capital. Okay, doc type. Then exclamation mark starting with exclamation mark we need to give, and then HTML small, that indicates that this is the HTML fifth version. HTML fifth version. Now close this declaration. Then after come write the HTML root element. Okay. Now then you write the HTML body element. Okay. Come down. Now close the HTML body element. Okay. Now close the HTML. I told you that forward slash will be used for, so so many times I told you that this is the format, this is the structure to create a web page. I told you that this is the declaration, HTML document declaration. This is the HTML root element, main element, body element. Within this, whatever we write, the code that will be read by the your web browser, and that will be displayed in your web page. So now our topic is what, how to use input data types, different data types. Okay, so let us use input type password. So input type password, first you need to start with form to be started. Okay, once form is started, form will be closed, form will be closed. Okay, form will be closed. Okay, now here within the form we need to write input type password. Okay, so first label, we need to write the label for what, start with label, label for. Okay, so label for what we need to write, label for, label for is what, attribute. Here username. Okay, understood that user name. This is for in attribute assigned with user name. Next, this is the label element started. Now text, whatever the text you want to display in the label, that is what your password, capital password. It will be in your displayed in your label. Okay, label for username. Okay, now we have given what, password. Before that, otherwise you give first create username. Okay, username first, then colon. Okay, that is to be. Okay, once this text will be displayed in your on your label. Okay, next close that what, label, label will be closed. Now, so label created with this is the text that will be displayed on the okay. Now label created. Next word. Next, once label is created, we need to give, that is what your here I told you that this is the empty element, otherwise next line break to get the next line. Okay, next we need to use input type. Type is what input is an element. Type, okay, type is an attribute that will be assigned with the text. Okay, input type is equal to text. I told you that text is input type. Many, just I have shown many types of input types: text, radio button, checkbox, list box. So text. Next, we need to use ID. ID is what? ID is an attribute. ID for what? ID for what? ID for username. Username, that is to be kept in double quotation marks. Next, name is equal to what? Name is equal to user name, end with double quotation marks, end with double quotation marks. Okay, now close. This is called what? Your input element. Input element started with input. Okay, input element started with type attribute, type assign text ID username, because we have label created for username. So this is to be this value to be kept in ID attribute. Username, name is equal to username. This is the syntax. Okay, now once one label is created for your username. Okay, next, here br is what I told you, that br for brn is empty element. Okay, next we need to use for one more label, that is to be created for your password. So you copy this one, copy, and you paste. No need to write the code, just you copy and paste. Here you use here the password. Otherwise, password simply you write pwd, whatever you want to keep. It doesn't mean. Simply if you want to write pwd, no issue. It is up to you. Okay, pw label created. Text to be displayed here. The text to be displayed. Password. This password. This text will be displayed on your label. Okay, for pwd password. Now here label closed. Label closed. Okay. Then after br, input type text ID. Here we need to write change this as pwd. Okay, because our text type, our label type is equal to pwd, so id will be label created for pwd, so id will be pwd, name also pwd. Now your label created, two labels created, and input type assigned for them. Okay, now form closed. Now where is that? Your form is closed. Now let us see, you save this code and you create under this one header section. Under this header h1, okay. Now within this you write um, for user credentials, user user credential word login form. Otherwise you write like that, login login form, okay, login form. Now close this close this h1 means header section, close this. So login form will be, this is the header that will be displayed, okay. So if you want to write any paragraph, you start with the paragraph, okay. The text, please enter your, please enter your credentials, enter your credentials. Credential means your username and password. Please enter your, okay. So now save this code. Save this code. I told you that save in your computer, in your folder which is created for all your code to be kept in one place. I told you that you need to create a folder and you need to keep all the code pages in your website, how many pages you have created, all that code related, everything that is to be kept in a folder. Whatever the video you want to show in your web page, any photos, images you want to show in your web page, everything that images also. So this is what credentials, otherwise password, okay. Credentials we simply write, otherwise login form, simply write it login. Save as hypertext markup language, hypertext markup language, save. So open your file explorer, open your file explorer. Now look for that, open that your the my web. So within this try to look for form, login form. Where is, this is the login form. Now open the login form and your credentials will be shown. So then after we will try to learn radio button, how to insert radio button, checkbox, okay, different input types. We will try to add in your, this is the login form, okay. Login form, please enter your credentials, username, okay, password. So why this is label? Because in your code you need to change, where is that code? So here we need to close this with smaller than, okay. That's why it is giving like, so now you save this code as, save as in your folder my web, okay, in your folder my web, same name, login, save, overwrite, no issue. Now go for your folder file explorer, run this code, login form, okay. So this is the login form you have created for your, okay. Here we will try to add some radio buttons, okay, in the form. How to use radio buttons in the form? So go into the code here in this way. Suppose if you want to, this is what input types, okay. Here we try to understand how many types of input types text we have used, and here text used. So here I want to use radio button, okay. For radio button, how to use the radio button. So for the submit button, I have used in the last session. Suppose if you want to use submit the form, you need to use input, input type, input type. Okay, it type is an attribute is equal submit. Which type of we need to use submit. This is what to insert submit button in your form. Input type is equal type is an attribute, input element type submit, value submit. We need to provide value is an attribute here. For this value, which type of value you want to show on your submit button. That is whatever the value you want to show on your submit button. Okay, now submit. Okay, now for the input type submit, this is the type attribute value submit means this is the value assigned to type. Here submit that will be shown on your submit button. Okay, now close this one. Okay, now if you want to keep your radio button one more time, input type is equal radio. So if you want to keep your radio button in your form, radio button. Okay, how to write the code? Input type radio. Next what? We need to write the ID. ID is what? ID is an attribute. Okay. Now here for HTML. Okay. This is the HTML. You can check back all these are the attributes. These are the values we can assign for this ID attribute. Here HTML. So HTML. So that is the ID is an attribute, value assigned for ID attribute. This type is also an attribute. The radio, this is assigned to type attribute HTML. Okay, that is assigned to ID. Next name. Name is equal to what? If you want to keep for the name attribute, name is equal to, which is your favorite language. Simply you write favorite language. Okay, favorite language. Now close this input. Now come down here. See what happened. Radio button I have created, that is for HTML. Okay, name favorite language. Now if I want to give somewhat value to be that value to be shown at where in front of radio button. Okay, that is what HTML. Because this HTML, this value will be shown in front of your radio button. The button will be shown in front of that. This HTML will be shown. Okay. Now here use the BR for what? BR I told you that BR is what? That is empty element. Okay. This is done. So once radio button created, then we need to let us see what happened here. We will save this, save as in your same web, overwrite it, go for your folder, run this, login form. So here, see, submit button. Okay, what about that radio button? So we need to write some more code for this input type. Okay, but we need to create the label for this. Okay, so for this, create the label type is equal to text. Why text to be displayed? Text to be displayed where? On the label, on the radio button. Okay, label for what? Label for, okay, here label for whom? HTML. Okay, label for HTML. Label for HTML. Okay, next, here that label text to be displayed as HTML. Okay, now close your label with forward slash. Understood that? So label for HTML. Okay, this text will be displayed in front of your label. Now br for what? Next, that is what, um, empty element. Okay, so now let us see this code. Save this code. Save as. Save as in your same overwrite. Now go for your file folder, file explorer, open your login form. See, HTML, this is what radio button to be created here. Huh? So radio button here, somewhat gap we need. That moment, no, we need to give BR element. Otherwise, all will be look somewhat. They will be look very near to each other. So we need to give that submit. Where is that submit? Here submit, you need to use the beer, otherwise you will not get any uh, space. This is okay. Input type radio id HTML. Okay, now this is okay. Submit created. Input type radio. Okay, id HTML, name that favorite language, whatever, that is okay. Next value I have given, that is what HTML. Okay, this is okay. Now then what happened here? This is okay. Now input type radio id, input type id HTML, name favorite language, value we have provided HTML. So for this, okay, HTML label for HTML content we have written inside of this. Okay, now let us see why it is not executed. Same, we copy this one more, copy this. So one more radio button we will create here. That is for what? We will change that as input type radio ID here CSS. CSS. Okay. Input type radio CSS. Name favorite language, whatever value here we want to give here show. That is what your CSS. Why? Next CSS will be shown here. Next, we need to create the label first. Label for CSS. Two labels I want to create here. Okay. Now here I want to show in front of the radio button this text to be displayed. Label will be closed, then beer. Okay. So two I have created. So now, so save this code, save as in your same folder, save, overwrite, go into your where in your folder and open your login form. So what happened here? One HTML, that is what HTML, this radio button created. For CSS, there is no any radio button created. Somewhat code, this is what we need to check back that it is to be. So go into submit via input type. We need to check the code here. Input submit. Here there is no any double quotation marks. Understood that? So we need to keep the double quotation mark here. And what about that? You save this as save this code as okay. Same login form. Overwrite and go into your folder wherever your code is stored as a login file. This is okay. So this is okay, but this is what this read radio button that is to be kept just below CSS, but radio button created just near to submit. Okay, so we need to check back the code. So submit, this is okay. Every after every line of code we need to keep BR. Okay, otherwise what happened, everywhere we need to get somewhat. This is okay. Radio input type radio, same code, ID, HTML name, label for is equal to HTML in place of CSS label. Okay, this is okay, this is okay, okay, okay. So next here, input type radio, ID is equal this and that, name is equal okay, value CSS. This is done. So what happened here? So one more we will create for JavaScript. One more we will create for JavaScript. Okay. Three radio buttons we want to see. Input type radio, ID here, JavaScript, JavaScript. Okay. Name under the favorite language. Value here the text to be displayed as JavaScript. Okay. Next for CSS, this is what input type radio button, ID JavaScript, name under the favorite language, value JavaScript, label created started. First we need to write here JavaScript. You write here JavaScript. Okay, now under double quotation marks, so here you need to write the JavaScript. Okay, JavaScript. Understood that? So it is created. So three labels, three radio buttons created. So with input type, initial I told you that label created for username, password, that is for your part of your um, username, password, credentials, login form. Okay. Now radio submit button. Whenever you click on that, your username and password will be okay sent to your checked okay for authentication. Then after input radio button, okay, I told you that input element will be used type with type attribute. For the type attribute radio, that is what radio value assigned, okay, with id, whatever the id you want to use for that radio button html, okay, name, favorite language, everything to be kept in double quotation marks. Value is equal, here don't forget to assign is equal for every attribute type, id, name, value, these are attributes. Okay, every type is an attribute, radio to be assigned after is equal, id is an attribute assigned with html, every value to be kept in double quotation marks. Don't forget that. Name is equal favorite language, okay, value is equal html. Okay, now your input element close, that is very important, huh? Now next, label. Okay, now label element started with attribute for is equal to html. This is the html value assigned to for attribute. Okay, this is the text to be displayed on your label, means radio button. Okay, closed. Now same thing, like this we have input type, same created for css. Okay, input type radio css. Okay, so now save this code. We have created three labels for three radio buttons. We have created three radio labels created for three radio buttons with the credentials of username, save as, save as, login. Okay, type as hypertext markup language. Overwrite. Now go into your file. The file is already opened in Notepad plus. Okay, no issue.